Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. So glad to have you aboard today for our show. We are going to have some fun diving into personal finance with you. We're going to have a little bit more of a business bent to today's show. What we're going to be talking about is more now than ever for people that are W-2 employees as well as people that are business owners. And I say that really because there's a whole movement from W-2 to 1099 or self-employed or a side hustle or you name it. It's really an area that has been opened up. And I would say a lot of that's responsible to the post-pandemic surge or, a lot of people that have been working from home. Either way, it's going to be a great show for you to tap into. Welcome aboard. I'm here with Ben Brayshaw, Dan Micklin. How you gentlemen doing today?
I'm doing good, Seth. I'm doing good. It's nice to have Dan back. That's not what I said in the last show, but nice to have you back, Dan. Appreciate you being here.
I made it real clear, Dan. We were missing you.
Well, I missed you guys too, that's for sure. So I'm glad to be back. Class this thing up a little bit.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. Bring some sanity into the room at least. I appreciate you.
Sanity in class. Thank you, Dan. Well, mastering taxes is a bold statement, right? So, there's a lot of different pieces. I think in the last show, Seth and I, we did as good a job as we could, Dan, without you, really covering a lot of kind of the personal areas of tax, taking advantage of the tax code to your favor. And today I'm really excited because we're going to talk a lot about the business piece. That is what America's heart and soul is, right? It's small business. It's that, how do I create the opportunity? And we talk about this all the time that, how you pay taxes is really defined by the code you want to follow. It's not black and white as much as people think it is. There's so many variants and deviations that you can choose to traverse, through the grand, scheme of what the tax code is. It's an interpretation. And, we're not ever suggesting that anyone do something that's not legal or inappropriate. What we're talking about is the fact is as simple as, driving on the highway and choosing to go a road that has a toll booth versus a one that doesn't and getting to the same end destination. One might take you a little more time, a little more planning. But that quick highway with a toll is, simple. It's a little faster and, a little easier, but you got to pay. You got to pay to be there. And so if you want really simplified taxes, you can pay. You can pay up the wazoo if that's really what you want. But there are ways to mitigate and more successfully define your tax story for what you want it to be. And when it comes to small business, this is one area that we work really hard to help a lot of people. And this is one of our specialties, I think, that people find one of the greatest values in what we do.
One thing I can definitely add is, having been a business owner now for, 10, 12 years, prior to that, I really just presumed taxes were pretty cut and dry, TurboTax kind of guy right off the W-2. And, having had that experience now and had my eyes opened and working with Ben in particular around the vast world of deductions and really beginning to understand what's out there and what expenses you take on personally, particularly in this, kind of work at home side hustle area that we're going to kind of dive into a little bit as we get into the meat of the show. But one of the things that I also learned is that the CPAs that you work with, some are very creative and kind of looking to push the envelope and can open your eyes to things, and others just kind of walk that fine line. And if you don't ask the right questions and if you don't do a little research yourself and kind of prod them and poke them a little bit and say, hey, listen, would I qualify for this? What about that? You really want to engage them and present the case that you're looking to minimize your taxes at every opportunity, and you expect good advice from them in that regard.
I would even encourage people to say, there's a lot of people who are doing a side hustle or whatever that they don't document as a job. They just take the cash and they don't pay the taxes on it, and they work with Joe or Suzanne or whatever down the street, and they're paint someone's house or do something on the side. It's I know teachers do a lot of that stuff during the summer. There's lots of different people that don't do it. But the truth is that you may be missing out on massive amounts of tax deductions that might really benefit you that you can't get without having a business.
Right.
And so like a lot of people think, hey, I made $3,000 or $5,000 on the side doing XYZ, but if you made it an official business, it really could turn into something that you wouldn't have to pay taxes on that income anymore anyways, and you might be able to have a deduction of loss in a business that would potentially help you. So people who are trying to escape the tax entirely may be missing out on benefits that might have been more favorable.
Yeah, so some other expenses they just accept could be deductible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. How many times have we been in the room, been taking a look at the finances and said, okay, what are our opportunities here? And one of the first places I think we tend to go is, okay, is there a business opportunity? Because inside of a business, we can find so many opportunities to really work through that tax code, just like you were saying. I think I said the same thing you were saying, but I felt like I needed to say it myself. Okay, with that, we're going to jump into money in the news.
And first up from The Hustle, here provided by Ben Berkeley, WeWork is a poor limping gazelle in a nature documentary. Really kind of colorful headline to the article there. But WeWork is one of those kind of startup IPO darlings from a few years ago that really just rocketed right up and was really the talk of the investment world for a brief period of time. But that story has come collapsing down. And the pandemic certainly didn't help, but they had struggled at times even before that. And one of the things that the article kind of delves into is some pretty serious corporate mismanagement of their assets and expenses, and really one of those trying to go too far too fast stories. They didn't take the time to really develop their core business in a sense that would make it sustainable for growth in other avenues. He just kind of went for broke right off the bat. And broke is about what they got. At the time of the article publishing, a share of WeWork was going for 18 cents, believe it or not. So that has taken a good, hard tumble.
I've had quite a bit of experience with WeWork, believe it or not. It was the pre-pandemic days, and we had several of them here in Portland, and they would have, some get-togethers, and we hosted actually some get-togethers there for some WeWork people. Had clients there. It was a neat idea taken at done at a level that was really attractive. There were certainly parts and pieces that were missing, as I, had friends that were in the renting space from WeWork. They just felt like what they were telling you on the front side was this community that we're offering really was kind of an extension of high school, super cliquish and not always as welcoming as they had hoped. And during the pandemic, they really did lose a lot of that business. And then if you want to know more about WeWork, there's a documentary out there. I believe it's on Netflix, and it has the Adam Newman story. And what I took away from that was a lot of behind the scenes that it got very cultish, as a matter of fact, as it was turning from WeWork into WeLive and almost a commune-ish kind of an environment around WeWork. And the guy really, he had a vision. It's a really interesting story to go take a look at, and whether or not it's redeemable at this point as a business, it's hard to say. Sometimes there's just great ideas like this that they just push it. They don't stay as focused as they could be. It gets a little confusing, I think, is where I'm going with that. And I think they just kind of ultimately lost their culture that was attractive at that level.
This just goes back to all the advice I really try to push on is, finding, strong, historically strong, profitable companies that pay a solid yield, that you have some predictability around. I just staying centered, having some sort of foundational perspective on how you invest would prevent you from all of this kind of craziness. And WeWork people. I say all of that, right? But then you say, look, what about Enron? Everyone thought Enron was but it turned out to be a big scam. And that's where diversification comes in. And, unless you're an expert trader or you really know these companies, I never owned that. I don't think I owned WeWork. If I did indirectly through a ETF or a fund of some sort, indirectly, I may have. But, not a company I even explored. So, I've chosen a number of stocks in my life and in my career that haven't done well. I didn't buy it ever thinking I was going to lose money, but every time you buy a stock, what does it do? and it goes down. So it's just that's part of the story because you don't make the highs and lows. But this is a tragedy for some people. Some people put a lot of money into this, and they were taken advantage of, and it's bad news. Whether or not and how this thing potentially maybe rebuilds itself, I have no idea. But I'm not willing to put 18 cents into it either.
On its way out, then possibly, but here we have on its way in. Nursing homes and adult care costs surged by the largest amounts in July. And thank you, Carrie Hannon from Yahoo Finance for this. Cost of nursing homes and adult care jumped by the largest amount in July, according to inflation data. Latest report of the Bureau of Labor Statistics released Thursday that the cost for nursing homes and adult care increased by 2.4% in July from the previous month. Biggest gain on records dating back to 1997. Overall consumer prices were up 0.2% for the month. And it's also is a part of what we've been talking to you about as we just had a long-term care show and taking a look at the scale of what's passing through the economy with our largest population now moving through the retirement era and their extended life and the capacity to extend and support life is where we're at in our science and medicine. So it is a bit of a no-brainer for me to say, of course. However, the jump in or the escalation in that as rapidly as it has been, I'm surprised as well. But I do continue to see this as just a story that we're going to continue to have here on Money on Tap and incorporate in how we're helping to support our clients through making later in life decisions.
Yeah, the 2.4% jump, like the article mentions, was the largest recorded in history going back to 97 when they started tracking these things. But it did follow a couple of months prior of decline in pricing. So one of the things that the article potentially attributes this to is just kind of a supply and demand issue as the pandemic's kind of coming to its end, and some of these homes are increasing their memberships or patients or however you classify that, but there's just more demand. And I predict, as you mentioned, Seth, that is likely to continue. The effect on pricing, we're not so sure about just yet. We've got to watch this for a little bit, but that generation continues to age, and these medical needs and medical facilities are going to get busier and busier over time.
For our listeners, this is a significant number. This is not a small thing. 2.4% in a month is like a 16+% increase in a year if you annualize that number. And we think about when people own long-term care policies, there are inflation riders built into these things. And what are they, Dan? They're 3
or 5%.
5%. Like that's not 16%. I mean, how do you catch up with something like that? That's 3 years of a compounding 5% rider, which is expensive add-on to a policy. And then on top of it, you're dealing with the fact that you still have other years of inflation while you're catching up with that. So, I mean, 16% in care. And honestly, people buying long-term care insurance on some level may be totally misplaced in the idea of having care facility coverage, because in 20 years, when another 80 million Americans retire on top of the 40 million that are retired, right? We have 38% of America retired, and the largest demand on nursing care happens. There may not be a bed for you. I mean, I don't think anyone really comprehends it. Like, there may be no place to put you. You could have all the coverage in the world, but if you weren't happened to be the lucky person who found a bed somewhere, your family could be moving you to a whole nother state, a whole nother world, a place you've had no relationship with just because that's the only place there's a bed. I think our listeners don't understand that it's really not about nursing home or assisted living care today. It's really about home care. And that's what most people really want, right? They really want home care, but ramping up your policy to be home care intentional is really where a lot of people should focus their purchasing power on. Maybe you're in a health situation where you're like, you know what? I really don't want to go to assisted living or nursing home. Let me make this move now while I'm 65. I've retired. Let me find a house that I can spend the next 30 years in if I need to. It's a single story. It's got this. It's handicap accessible. Like, make those choices now and be home care ready.
Yeah, I mean, part of the show we dove into is how the kind of government programs pay into this overwhelming cost. And this article actually does a good job highlighting that about 15% of an average retiree's annual expenses are going to be health related, and total costs for medical care for a single retired person at age 65 today is going to be $157,500 or $315,000 for a married couple. So this expense is really tremendous, and it's got to be a part of any solid financial plan just to have something in place to help offset that, whether it's long-term care or some other means of funding. To just presume it's not going to affect you in this way would be foolish.
Yeah, I mean, as planners, as financial planners, that focus is to manage and build wealth and try to help people, create the retirement story of their dreams. I mean, that's what we're employed to do, but we're also employed to make sure that it doesn't crash and burn because of a healthcare event. And that's why things like this and being aware of the risks you're taking. And if you come in and you say, hey, I want to take that risk and it doesn't matter to me, and I'm going to live the best life I can until I get a care facility, and I'm going to be a state's problem and let them take my money. And whatever that story is, we'll plan that story with you. We'll help you accomplish that goal. But for a lot of people, that's not the story they want to run.
Man forced to ditch Ford EV truck during family road trip to Chicago. Biggest scam of modern times. Bela said he was initially motivated to buy an environmentally friendly vehicle, as owning one is responsible citizenship. By Bradley Betts, Fox Business. I felt really bad for Dalbir Bela, who's the focus of this article as he's describing his experience with his Ford F-150 Lightning EV. First thing that did catch my eye was that responsible citizenship, that was a mindset that he had while purchasing the vehicle to go to and from work, but also wanted to be able to get out on the weekends. Winds up becoming stranded, was a 1,100-mile trip to the States, ultimately winds up abandoning the vehicle at a Ford dealership because there were no working charging stations available. As well, the charge cost more than it would for gas and took 2 hours to charge. I actually have a friend just last week was trying to get to Tahoe to see her family, and that had just purchased an electric vehicle and was putting out a Facebook help, SOS. Does anybody know where I'm at and if there is a charging station that's nearby? And also, do you have any way of helping me or knowing what to do in this circumstance? Because she was stuck. Eventually, her family wound up getting her from Lake Tahoe and bring her to their location. But it's more common than you think. I don't think this is a one-off, and I think that people need to be prepared as they're getting into this EV world of not only potentially what a long-term trip or a long trip could look like for you, as well as all the expenses that come alongside of purchasing that vehicle, which added up to a lot.
Yeah, this guy spent $130,000 between the cost of the vehicle and the infrastructure around his house and charging and everything else.
And work. He had to have it at work as well.
I laugh because I think about the Ford F-150 Lightning EV, and the only thing this guy's hoping for is the thing struck by lightning.
He had to leave it in the shop for a fender bender for 6 months.
Oh, yeah, because they couldn't fix it right. We bought a hybrid, my wife and I. We bought a hybrid, and my whole point with her was I never want to be electric-only dependent. I just don't think the infrastructure's there. And these companies are pushing this stuff, and, it just doesn't quite make sense. I mean, you're talking about people really risking their life. Even Seth, in your friend's experience, they're risking their life owning an EV the second they decide to travel outside their norm. Like, you're stuck. To actually plan through those trips is much more complicated. I think Tesla has a whole, like, when you're going to do a trip, you put it in and they tell you where you're going to stop. Like, and you have to stop.
Yeah.
But this article talks about how they were stopping at a lot of these places, and either the charging system was faulty, broken, and then the 800 numbers they called couldn't do anything about it. They're like, well, you have to go find another charging station. This one's broken.
Yeah, this guy, he went from one station that didn't work to another that didn't work, found himself with 12 miles left and just had to get towed to the dealership, rent a car. I mean, talk about a nightmare trip. That would not go well with my family. I can tell you that right now. There would be a serious problem. That would definitely be a life-threatening situation. Yeah, I mean, I think we've made the point a number of times when we've done a series of kind of green energy initiative shows, and from the investment perspective, which looked most likely to pan out and would be a good place to get invested in. But the simple fact is our country, our grid, our infrastructure, we're just not ready yet for this conversion to straight green energy or electric cars. We just don't have what it takes to keep this country moving in any means other than pumping gas. I mean, that's what we're prepared for.
My biggest caution is anytime the government gets behind something so quickly and pushes it so hard. Sorry, folks. There's a lot going on behind the scenes with any of those scenarios, and my red flags go up real quick. So, with that, that's going to take us out of money in the news. We are mastering the tax code for small business success today. If you are on that podcast, thank you for hitting the subscribe and just sending us a message to Money on Tap or info@yourmoneyontap.com or 855-226-8551 is a great way to get hold of us as well. We've got some Money on Tap gear that we'd love to send you out. And just thank you for being here with us at Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hey, this is Seth Cressman with Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100 and enjoy a user-friendly platform with diverse ranges of investment options. Visit Brayshaw Financial Group and start your investment journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are talking about mastering the tax code for small businesses. This is kind of a part two of shows for us. Last week we really talked about mastering the tax code, and that was more on the personal side, taking a look at the majority of us out there that are in the tax-paying world, and what are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves out, minimize the taxes that we're taking or that we're paying, and take advantage of the opportunities that the tax code is providing us. That is one of those kind of a sure bets when we're taking a look at, doing the financial planning piece, when we unpack what's going on in your world and start planning through the finances. One of the very first things that we're taking a look at is the taxes. What are you doing in your financial world? There's a lot of questions that we want to get some answers to so that we can have a really meaningful, deep conversation around how your numbers are working through your life and what the tax code really offers to, accomplish your goals. We're going to dive into the business side of things today with you. Why? Well, so many of you that are our clients and many of you that are out there and are listening today are business owners or have the opportunity to become a business owner and kind of have some questions like, well, what are the advantages? Just like Ben was talking about earlier, if maybe you've got a side hustle, just doing some painting on the side. A lot of teachers, right, do this, or people that have some flexibility. I'm trying to think of over here. We've got, professional fishermen that are, the summers they're out catching fish. The winter they're just kind of hanging out and doing whatever. But a lot of them do some side work as mechanics or, you name it. There's all sorts of things that they'll do, but maybe it's just cash in hand. Maybe it's better for you to open up the tax code and see how you can help just have frankly, pay less taxes, right? Make more money is usually what we're going with that.
Yeah, I would say that, that's, the government does allow you to have a business that loses money. It happens every day before they go bankrupt. But for the small business owner, I was just thinking, Seth, you were talking about fishermen and stuff like that, but I was just thinking about over here, there's people who they pave roads and so forth from basically April essentially till October, November, and then they're fired for 4 months, and then they work on the side. And some of them have profitable businesses that, make a little bit of money, but when you're done doing the deductions, they actually end up saving a little bit. But a lot of people are just trying to avoid the taxes entirely. And that's not always the best thing, because if you can lower your overall income according to the IRS, then you pay less and you might even get a bigger refund or, and so forth. That being said, one thing I always try to encourage people is, you just try to do things the right way. I mean, that's, it all works out when you do it right. I really do believe that. And with that, the government allows us lots and lots of various things that we get to deduct across the board. I think, probably one of the first most obvious things that you get to deduct is, business expenses when it comes to dining out. I mean, that's, people get to deduct their meal expenses. Now, that's not every meal. It has to be business related, right? Of course. But you might intentionally make some of your meals business related. You might, have a client who's also a friend that you go out to dinner, you talk about business, and you have a nice dinner. That's, totally legitimate. You get 50 cents on the dollar, so you're basically essentially writing off their meal, not your own. But that doesn't take away the fact that you can have work lunches. I mean, if you have a office work lunch for your staff and so forth, you get to deduct that. And you also educational meals that are not just exclusive to a single sale, but it's the meal is not directed towards the event itself. The event is educational, like if you provide coffee at an event or something like that, that type of food expense is 100% deductible. All of these things that we're talking about, check with your CPA, because each one of these, items may vary inside this. Like we have different categories in our accounting system for the different types of meals. Now, I know we try to take a much more conservative approach, so I think we take off the 50% scenario more so than anything else. But those are things that a lot of people have to do. The other thing that's really common that is like the immediate next is the cell phone scenario. And, there's this conversation between, I would say, personal use and business use. And the truth is if you need that cell phone to make one business call every month, and it's the same charge as whether you made one business call and 5,000 personal calls, at some point in time, you still needed the cell phone. And a lot of CPAs, like if it is your primary role, that is what you use for business, which most of the, IRS side of this thing would agree, you can pretty much write off the whole thing. I mean, you just need the tool. It is the only tool. Most people don't even have a business phone; they use their cell phone.
Yeah, I mean it's not just for phone calls anymore. It's your email, it's your scanner, it's just a multi-purpose tool, and because you use it in so many different facets, it's critical to do in business. It happens to also be critical to live in your personal life, but the deduction's still there and it's available. And just one quick thing backing up onto the meals, it's great. Keep the receipts right on the back, who you sat with, what you talked about, and just file it away and, work with your CPA later on to make the determination as to how deductible this event was. But keep those records, keep it handy, note on there somewhere who you were with and what the purpose of the meeting was. And that'll be a heck of a refresher come year end. So you're not trying to just rifle through these things or looking through credit card bills to try and figure it all out.
Yeah, receipt management is a nightmare. I would echo that.
Yeah, I was going to say just take a picture of it and put it into a file just for the year that you're keeping, and you can even separate those into months to try to keep track of where those are at. But typically, file recording on your pictures. If you snap a photo of that, put it in your Google Drive for your taxes, whatever you want to do to organize that. It's a very simple way to just be in a habit of taking care of that for yourself.
I would jump right into, there's all these office expenses. I think that's one of the things that really starts getting into it, right? So as soon as you are a business, you start really thinking about what do you need in your office? Well, if you're working out of your house, which is really, really very common for most small business owners, you've got your cell phone, but you've got your internet for your home. You need to have internet to work your computer. For us, we're watching. I watch business news 24/7. I literally am addicted to it. I love it. I love listening to it. The hype gets me going. I get energized by it. But I have to pay to watch the business news. Now, if my kids are having to be watching cartoons on Saturday morning, I know that doesn't exist anymore in our world, but if they're watching cartoons as an offshoot, it's irrelevant. I need to have that service for my business.
If your kids are watching that, if your kids are watching business news, it doesn't take away at all from the deduction, does it?
No, it doesn't. But you know what? I do have one child that does. So, but it runs all the way in, right, guys? I mean, we have our office. We have multiple offices here at Brayshaw Financial, but we all work at our house too. I mean, I work crazy hours. I work, staff was telling me, why are you emailing me at 12:30 in the morning? Well, running businesses, you have all sorts of hours that you work. So I have a home office too. And, I can deduct that off my tax return. I mean, it's dedicated to me as my office because I don't want to hear my kids running around the house while I'm working and I have to fulfill something else.
I mean, everyone that's doing a side hustle, I mean, that's basically from home or in the garage, or, it's not probably your 9 to 5 at the office type of a situation. So there's going to be all kinds of space and costs and things that are eligible to be deducted that otherwise you would probably miss out on, if you take the time and you choose the course of claiming that income and doing it right. But if you do so, you'll open yourself up to a significant amount of savings, I think.
Yeah, and I really think when we talk about, all the people who don't even file that they have a business. They don't put their business revenue and their expenses all in there. You put that on your expenses on your Schedule C and, all of this stuff. People try to hide this from the IRS. So that's why they're trying to literally require that, every PayPal, Venmo, all these different companies out there, if you're doing $600 or more, they want to know about it because they feel like they're missing out. And the truth is they probably are from some people, but by the time they're done evaluating all the people who have businesses, if they got smart about all the write-offs they could have, they would have all these deductions that would take their other income negative. They probably end up losing money. But there's plenty of people making more than they should, and then that's what they're trying to go after. But I think it's funny, the whole $600. I think that's hilarious because that's not really where the problem is, but it's what they're going after. So they're going to force people into this. So if you're doing something on the side, this is probably your opportunity to really embrace it and hand it right back to them. Because, at some point in time, if you're paying for health insurance, guess what? That's deductible, right? I got to tell you, like most business owners, they organize around business travel with business vacation, right? I mean, if you have to travel somewhere on business, if you got to fly to Florida to do XYZ and buy a plane ticket, you do that and you stay 3 or 4 days longer. At the same point in time, that plane ticket was there and back. Like it doesn't. So there's kind of like, for instance, like I used to fly Tuesdays to Tuesdays, or I think it was, because it was just cheaper to do that. So I would figure out what I was going to do on those trips during the weekend because I was like, hey, I'm going to save $500. It's cheaper than my hotel cost. Like you kind of go through that business conversation, then you're like, well, I'll sit here and, see what else I can do.
Plus, you get to keep the miles for personal use if you want to. They transfer fluidly. There's no restrictions on that. And we've also had family do, like you mentioned, Florida. There's hey, guess what? There's some stuff to do in Florida, and the family might want to come and hang out and do some of those things with you, like Disney World or whatever it is. And that's one of the nice perks, I guess, if you can take advantage of that in your travel and your big expenses as well.
But one thing about the miles that's important to note is, people that do accumulate miles, don't spend the miles on the business trip. Right? Make sure that
no.
Yeah, make sure you're applying that only to the vacation travel, right? Some people might do that if they're just thinking, kind of the singular mindset. They are their business and they have an opportunity for a freebie, so they use it. But, pay the money, deduct the cost, save the miles, use that for the family trip.
Yeah, I mean, I've done that with my Discover card forever. It's like, I get my 1% back and I choose whatever we're going to spend something on, and it has nothing to do with business every time. I don't want to do that. So, but there's just so many little things, and each person, we could get into it, but probably the next biggest thing that is the car write-off. Right. This is where people start getting into it because it's usually mileage. So a lot of people, in 2022, you could deduct 58.5 cents a mile for the first half of the year, the second half of the year, and make sure your CPA is doing this for you because the second half of the year, it went up literally 8%, I think it was, is to 62.5%. So that was a big increase for mileage. So if you had a year where you drove more in the second half of the year, like make sure you're getting the right, number of cents on your miles. But there's a difference between owning a car and leasing a car. And I think, for a lot of people, they buy their truck, they had it, then they start their business, and then you start deducting the mileage. But for somebody who's maybe, a courier or, doing a lot of travel, they might lease a vehicle. A courier probably wouldn't lease a vehicle, but they might lease a vehicle. At the end of the day, that really removes your mileage calculation because it's now just a business vehicle, and it really is just kind of like all your expenses get deducted because that's what it's going to cost to take.
And if you are on the other side of that and you purchase an SUV or need a truck, or larger vehicle, there's a weight capacity on this that you can use a Section 179, right? Which you can depreciate that vehicle and you can do a lot of it on the front end. I remember the code opened up for basically almost 100% depreciation immediately versus having to spread that out over several years. And I think 2023, they've rolled that back to about an 80%. In the tax code, have to check on that stuff always, but there's an opportunity there as well. And that's one of the reasons why so many if you're like wondering, well, why do so many business owners own SUVs or trucks or those kind of things? Well, that's one of the reasons why. Plus, you know what? SUVs rock.
Well, I think that's important too, because if you are buying larger vehicles, it is a good idea to figure out if doing a full write-off all at once is beneficial. Like if you have a really good year and you say, you know what, I'm going to buy myself a new truck. Well, you might be able to deduct that whole thing. But if you're starting out on a business and you need a truck and you're just slowly earning your way into it, you're not going to want to take advantage of that, right? You're going to want to spread that tax bite. You want that tax savings out over time. So you might not want to, upfront depreciate it. But if you're, hey, man, we made a ton of money this year, I need deductions, like go buy your new truck and call it a day. But if you can't afford the truck, don't do that either.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Thank you for subscribing in the podcast world. If you've done that, just reach out to us at either one of those places and let us know. We've got some Money on Tap gear for you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Mastering the Tax Code for Small Businesses. You're listening to Money on Tap.
Looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100 and enjoy a user-friendly platform with a diverse range of investment options. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com and start your investing journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We are mastering the tax code for small business success. Really kind of just jumped right in. What are some of the basics here for opportunities in small business world? We're going to start working our way through some of the maybe lesser known of the deductions or opportunities that there are as small business owners. And surprisingly, I just love these shows because we always just get a chance to kind of learn something new, because guess what? That tax code, then it changes every day. We turn around, we're like, did you see that? I just looked last month. It wasn't there, but there it is. And so some of these are big opportunities, and some of them are closing windows of opportunity for you to be aware of as well.
I get excited about these shows too, because we just went through probably some of the more simplistic, and for some people that's like totally new for them, simplistic business tax write-offs and things that people do and how people perceive those. And they're like, can I do this? Can I do that? And they're really looking for someone to kind of bless that story. I wouldn't say that we're doing that. You need to talk to your CPA. You need to talk to your tax advisor. But as financial planners, we work in this space and realm, and we can help you do that test to see if the questions you have are legitimate for a business that you're doing. I think we can try to help you do that. And if we can't find the answer, we'll get the expert that can tell you whether it's a yes or a no. But I'm excited because now we're going to dive into some of the more complex things for a lot of people, even for some of the savviest business owners. It's going to get a little, out there. It's really for the person who's saying, I need to know enough to know that I have to ask the right question, right? I mean, that's kind of where I'm at sometimes in life. Like, if I'm buying a TV, I'm like, I don't know what QLED and QOPQ or any of this stuff is. I need somebody who understands the variance so that they can at least help me. And I need enough information to be able to ask educated and qualified questions. And so we're going to kind of jump into kind of the more official side of the business, a little bit. We're going to talk about, with an LLC, an S Corp, or any of these types of things. When it comes to an LLC, you don't really get taxed until you're making over $400. I mean, so you could have a full LLC and, it may not even matter, but it doesn't take a lot to put one together. It's a lot easier than a lot of people think. Here in New Hampshire, it'd probably take you 30, 40 minutes. You get, and you can get it can even be under your own tax ID number. It doesn't even have to be under its own. You could use your Social Security number or something of that. But people create corporations for various reasons, but one of them is the tax favorability. Like if you're working a really good job and you're in a kind of a higher tax bracket, in 2017, they lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% down to 21%. And if you're in a 24%, tax bracket, which a lot of, successful people are, but they have a side business, it might make sense to have a corporate company. And it also might make sense to have your own, retirement plan. It might be something that's relevant for you to really dig into. There's a lot of moving pieces around this, but I think I was just talking to somebody the other day. I was doing a Zoom call with a client, and they were came into some money, and they were looking to figure out, they wanted to invest some of it, but they were really saying, I want to own my own business. They talked about everything from Airbnb to buying, a various franchise. We explored those conversations in great depth. And they were asking me about an LLC. And even though I'm not an attorney, I have a few LLCs actually. So, from that perspective, I started explaining to them that there's this veil of protection. It's not unpierceable, but it's a little bit of protection. And sometimes you might have multiple LLCs to protect different entities. You might have real estate companies. You might have your painting company. You might have your, you could have your Airbnb company. You could have all these different things. So they're not directly connected. You are just this sole connector. And it just creates a little bit more protection from an organization coming after you from an Airbnb rental that had a problem with it going after your other companies. I mean, that's just kind of the purpose of it. Is it guaranteed? No, it's not.
Lots of entrepreneurs, it takes a couple cracks at this, right? The businesses that come and fail and they start up again. So keeping those entities separate is a way to protect, potentially the assets from the ones that succeed from the liabilities of those that fail. So definitely the structure of this is something to really get some good solid advice around and understand it well.
And most people are going to tell you if you own a building and that's where you house your business, that you're probably not going to have those in the same company. They're going to be owned by separate companies because you don't want one thing to be a problem and kill the other. I mean, that's kind of the piece there. So if you have a piece of real estate in your business, and that is not the business of real estate, then you would really want to probably get some advice on that and talk through it.
Yeah, it's pretty common, I think, for a lot of people to go ahead and warehouse the real estate or commercial real estate inside the LLC if you have like the rental property scenario, just as a layer of protection for yourself.
Well, and there's some things here that I think we want to chat about that are really, really important. So in 2017, there was a lot of tax law changes. One of them was bonus depreciation. That's been an exciting thing that we were able to, for specialized equipment and so forth, you could write off the whole thing all in 1 year. There's also other types of depreciation benefits where you could, like hotels or Airbnbs, you could, buy a couch and write it off over, 3 years or 5 years, just depending on the scenario and what it was and whatnot. But you've been able to move a lot of these things into this 1 year bonus depreciation schedule, which in 2022 was 100%. In this coming year, it's scheduled to go down by 20%. So it'd be an 80% bonus depreciation. And it's going to go down by 20% until it wears out, unless they change something. And so bonus depreciation has been a huge opportunity for a lot of people in the last few years. But I would encourage people to be really careful to not get excited about writing a ton of stuff off if your business is not making a ton of money, right? I mean, I got to tell you, I worked with a client one time. They had so many losses from historical businesses that were buried on their tax return that they had paid taxes on, that remember, Dan, we had to build a passive income generator to basically use up those things that they've already paid taxes on, that they were going to just die with. I was like, we have to match this up. This is like free money that you can make by doing this correctly. So, understanding your current tax return is also, and it's just coming to my mind now, something that's really, really important to match up with your investment strategies.
Yeah, and there's another deduction from the 2017 Tax Act that's called a 199A, where for certain qualified businesses, S corps, LLCs, corporations, sole proprietors, you'll be able to take a 20% tax reduction off of your income right off the top.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Podcast subscribers, make sure to drop us a love letter at either one of those places, because we know you love us and we love you too. We want to give you some Money on Tap gear. When we come back, we're looking into some retirement plans for business owners. What? Yeah, that's right. We're talking about retirement plans here on Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Dan Mickelon of Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for professional guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Advisors are here to help. Our team of experts will provide you personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit us at BrayshawFinancial.com today and schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more Money on Tap with Ben, Seth, and Dan.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. And we are talking about how to master the tax code for small business success. And with that, we're going to run out of time if we don't get to it, folks. So here we go. Dan, what do you got?
Well, I think for those small businesses out there that are successful and growing well enough to employ people, there's a couple things that are out there that really need to be taken advantage of. Particularly one of them is this ERC program, which came out kind of post-pandemic. It's an extended benefit for employers that continues to be out there. There is a little bit of a trick to it. It does require refiling some taxes, but you can get a credit back of up to $7,000 per quarter per qualified employee. So we're talking about the real potential here of a significant payday from the IRS. And there's lots of commercials. You hear this on the radio and television these days all over the place. So there's many, many companies out there that are looking to help you make these filings. They'll check if you're eligible for it relatively quickly. Of course, they're doing this for a hefty cut of the pie, so there may be some cheaper avenues to discover this for yourself. But if you do employ people presently and you did employ people through the pandemic, this is just an absolutely must-have opportunity to take a look into.
Yeah, I mean, the ERC thing is something that's been, and they've expanded that code. So for people who maybe originally looked into this, the government realized that there were so many people that, were affected in different ways. They started really broadening that thing. we get a mailing about the ERC from one random bank after another. I would say a couple a week. I mean, literally, I think I had 3 this week. And I would my recommendation is to urge you to use your CPA to do this. Most CPAs can do this. You want to make sure, because a lot of these fly-by-night companies will literally make an application, and if the IRS comes back and they did it wrong to get you more money and they take a big share of it, you're stuck on the hook and they're out of business and gone. So ERC, buyer beware, be careful. That's something you want to watch out for. And then there's a lot of, from the employee side, there's retirement plans up the wazoo, right? But for people who have less than 50 employees, it's really important to know that, our government is really pushing for us to put retirement plans in place. And, they've made it 100% deductible for the plan costs for up to $5,000 for a business owner. You can deduct up to $5,000 for your plan costs, and then there's a credit you can claim for every $1,000 per employee contribution you make as well. So there's credits for these things. I mean, these are not, they're not just straight write-offs. Some of these are like write-up credits. So it's really important for you to know this thing and talk to your CPA may not even be aware of some of this stuff. And I hate to say that, but honestly, it's surprising to me, unfortunately, that a lot of CPAs aren't asking these questions. They're just trying to get your taxes done as close and as good as they possibly can. So, working with your CPA right now in the fall, is the best time to call them. Right?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is the time to call and ask those questions. Don't give them this call on April 10th. Not going to go well. This is the time to really get into that.
Some people, April 10th would be early warning. So, it's really important to make sure that's the piece. We didn't really get into some of the other tax exemptions that, there's a ton of write-offs inside the energy efficient zone this year. I don't think we touched on that. And that's something I would encourage you to give us a call, because there's lots of different things, both personally and professionally, from solar to hydro stuff. I mean, there's just 1,000 of these write-offs, but commercial buildings commercial building, renovation for energy efficiency is totally deductible, and some tax exempt organizations get these benefits too in their own way, and so it's just a real good opportunity.
Yeah, there's a lot to the retirement planning world, and most of it, I would say, absolutely. You want to give us a call. Some of the plans that are out there, as simple as just a payroll deduction IRA, and then moving into a SEP or a simple IRA or 401k or defined benefit kind of plans or defined contribution plans. There's all these things out there. And I've had that scenario too, Ben, where a business advisor has been coaching one of our clients and said that this is the plan that they need. And, we're not here to, discredit anybody and their ability to make a recommendation. It just wasn't their wheelhouse. And I think they were doing the best they could, but it was not what was in the best for the client.
Yeah. That happens. And I would say that I really like having 401k plans on the business owner, not because they have to contribute, but because we can utilize it to be a tax deduction in a year where income is really high. And then where income is really low, potentially in other years, we can actually do Roth conversions and absorb that tax scenario in a little bit healthier way. A lot of people don't realize that. And we can do profit sharing and things like that.
There's a lot we can do with that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Seth.
I was going to say, the thing I always want to advise people is that there's some responsibilities to these as well, some fiduciary responsibilities that people just need to be aware of. Like annually, you're going to have to do something in that 401k world to make sure it's in compliance and everything's getting taken care of. And a lot of the time, there's somebody on staff that can manage that for the business owner. And other times, it's going to be somebody else that's going to need to step in, or the business owner that just sometimes wants to kind of manage the reins in that.
I'm going to leave us with this one last kind of, buyer beware, be careful scenario. There's 87,000 potential IRS people going to be hired, and 4,000 phone support and 700 in-person staff this year alone. If you're treading anywhere, and even if you have an LLC or you have a corporation, or you're running a business, you need to call somebody like us. You really do, because the thing is you're going to be under a microscope like you've never been before. You may be thinking you're doing this right. You're filing your own taxes. We have people in our office that file taxes. We have people that do things like this. We know CPAs around the area. We can try to help you find somebody that's a really strong fit, but you do not want to go this alone, right? Like, you don't want to start doing deductions and all of a sudden have the IRS snooping all over you because they added a ton of people to help really find it. They're out to figure out if you're taking advantage of the tax code in a way that's unfair and wrong, and we want to help you do it in a way that's right, correct, and opportunistic. And that's really where we need to drive the scenario so you can sleep well at night and know that this thing is done. And if you've been doing this haphazardly for a really long time, or your husband or wife has been doing this and you're feeling uncomfortable, give us a call. This is where you really need to step up and make sure, because 87,000 people were hired to figure out if your $600 in your Venmo or your PayPal account should have been taxed at XYZ%, or was that really your daughter just giving you a little bit of cash back, or you giving your daughter some money at college?
Well, I was told that they were there to answer the phone for me and make sure my question got answered, but that's a totally different take. You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We have been having some fun with you here today, mastering the tax code for small businesses. And yes, just like Ben said, there's lots of opportunity and there's lots of questions, and we're here for you. Give us a call at 855-226-8551. And inside of all of that, be successful in your investing. Can't wait to talk to you this week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.